Hey guys, my name's Keyan Houshmand, and in today's video we're going to be checking out the brand new 1111 plugin from Otto Audio. This one's a little bit different. Let's have a look. The 1111 is a little bit different from your standard amp sim. As opposed to having that kind of snapshot of what the 1, 2, 3 or 4 amps sound like within one single plugin, with this plugin you get so many options that you can basically mold the amp to sound basically any way that you want. If you dial it in right, you can get basically anything from 5150 to Friedman to Mesa tones to Soldano tones. There are so many options within this amp sim, and you can change so many things that are very, very unique to this plugin. I haven't seen it done on many other plugins in terms of the raw functionality that you get. That you can basically mold it into anything that you wish. It might sound a little bit strange now, you might not really get what I'm talking about, but when you see me go through the plugin, you'll definitely understand what I'm talking about. So let's check it out in a mix, but before we do, if you guys like this video at any time, please feel free to leave a like and a comment on anything you see or hear, and if you want to see more of this stuff, definitely think about subscribing. If you want to support me directly, you can get the tabs, stems, DIs, drum tracks, all that good stuff to the demo song that you're about to hear on my Patreon, and you can check out my affiliate links as well. All that stuff will be down in the description below. Otto Audio are actually giving away 3 copies of this plugin to people in the comments below, and you can find out how to win that if you keep watching the video. And if you want to learn more about this plugin, you can check it out at ottoaudio.net, and you can get 50% off by using the code HEAVIERTHAN at checkout. Obviously this is a sponsored video. Otto Audio were kind enough to send this over. However, all opinions and thoughts on this product are mine. As I say all the time, I could not be bothered making a plugin video if I didn't think it sounded good. So without further ado, how does it sound in a mix? So here it is, the brand new 1111 plugin from Otto Audio. Right now we're going through my Jackson Houshmand Pro Series guitar loaded up with bare knuckle Ragnarok pickups, and we are in drop B. Going through the UI of the plugin, very easy to navigate. So on the bottom panel here, all your main plugin output controls basically, and your presets and stuff like that. So bottom left is all your presets, where you can save your presets into separate banks. Just next to that you have this drop down box here that kind of changes the topology of the amp, which is a very, very cool feature. So it kind of changes the gain structure, the way the amp feels. So for example, if I'm on 1111 here, it's very in your face. If I go to something like long plate tubes, there is that little bit of difference in volume, so we can adjust that by turning the output up. As you can probably tell, it's a little bit more subdued, kind of has a little bit more low and a little bit more chewy compared to the first one that we heard. And there's so many different ones that you can choose from to really craft your tone from scratch. This is what this plugin is all about, kind of trusting your ears, going through all the settings that it provides, and there's a lot of settings, way more than your standard amp sim. Gives you a lot of control, and basically with this plugin, it's different in the sense that it's not about kind of getting an amp tone like a one snapshot kind of thing and then using that. It's kind of just building your tone from scratch, layer by layer, with all the different settings that it provides you, and you see what I mean as I go through the amp. From there you have your input and output control, and then you got your output control, so you can either have it going in mono stereo or stereo. Now mono stereo is very cool because it's basically one of the main features of this plugin. It's to kind of mimic the way that playing in front of a real cab feels like. So when you really crank your monitors in front of you and get loud, just the way that it moves, it takes your single track, pushes it left and right, kind of adjusts it. So I think there's like a little bit of delay on one side. But when you play loud, it really does feel like you're playing in front of like a super cranked cab. I think the mono stereo feature is very cool if you're like riff writing, if you want to get inspired, you know, having that feel of playing in front of an actual speaker, you know, it might get you to write some different stuff as opposed to playing in mono, which is what we're basically used to most of the time, where it's straight down the middle, really good for recording and stuff like that in mono. However, it is one of the main criticisms that most people have with plugins. If they're used to using real amps, it doesn't have that real amp feel. Well, you can basically get almost all the way there with this mono stereo. Oversampling settings, and then you got a punch control and a power amp control as well. Going onto the front of the amp, clicking this little icon here brings down the impedance curve drop down. So basically what this is it kind of just alters the mid-range of your tone heavily. So if I'm on impedance curve 1, it sounds super scooped. If I go to something a little bit more higher up the list, like impedance curve 7, there's that change in volume, so we can adjust for that. You can probably tell that it's a lot more mid-forward, and to be honest, that's the type of tone that I usually go for. And you can cycle through them using these kind of arrow buttons over here. Knobs are very standard. You get your preamp, bass, mids, treble, master, presence, and depth knobs. And then you have your IR loader here. So there's 22 different IRs to pick from, and you can cycle through them either here or by picking it down on the drop down there. Going on to my favorite part of the plugin is the back of the amp. Now this is where you can really dial in the feel of the amp and how it kind of reacts to your playing, which is something that I'm a huge fan of. First switch is this mod switch here, so you have two different types of sounds. It's very subtle. You have this one, or this one, which I think is a little bit more vintagey sounding, a little bit more not as hi-fi, if that makes sense. Moving on, you have your overdrive settings. So you have the punish switch, which is your overdrive. You can add another 10 dB of gain into the overdrive to get a little bit more tight, a little bit more saturation. And then you can add back some lows if you feel like it's sucking out too many, which is a cool feature to have. And then from there, you have your gate knob, pretty standard. To the power tube selection, you can choose between 3 different types of tubes. You get your EL34s and your 6L6s, which are pretty standard, and you also get your KT88s. So choosing these tubes would kind of change the sound a little bit. 6L6s are a little bit more squishy. EL34s are a little bit more pushed, I think. Even though they're quieter, you can adjust that with the amplitude knob here, which I'll demonstrate in a moment. And then you got your KT88, which is probably the most modern sounding out of all of them. So starting on the 6L6. Moving on to the EL34, and then the KT88. And then from there you have your bias, sag, feedback, and snarl knobs. Now you can have a colder bias and run the amplitude knob just a little bit higher, so it kind of adjusts for that gain that you're losing, or you can run it super hot and dial this amplitude all the way back. Before it was kind of here. I don't mind the sound of something that's a little bit colder, so I'm going to do that and adjust for the amplitude over here. And then you have your sag control. Having full sag does make the signal quieter, so you can kind of adjust that again with the amplitude knob. Just makes everything feel a little bit more squishy. If you turn it all the way off, it just sounds very direct. doesn't make everything sag as much. I feel like that's why they call it a sag knob. Then you have your feedback knob. Now, if the feedback knob is turned all the way down, the depth and the presence knobs do not work on the front of the amp. It's only when you turn it up that they start to be reactive. Reason being is that when the feedback knob is all the way back, you're getting basically the full brunt of the amp. And when you turn the feedback all the way up, it gets a little bit more compressed, a little bit more squishy. And then you add low ends and all that stuff. So from there, you can then adjust the depth and the presence individually if you have it a little bit higher, as opposed to having it all the way off. Now is basically your overall resonance control. So the higher that you have it, I wouldn't put it anywhere higher than halfway. I feel like that's fine, but you do have the freedom to push it all the way up and make it sound really shrill. Or you can run it a little bit over here, which is probably what I would do, just to give a little bit more push and a little bit more high end out of the amp, kind of give it that like more finished tone, I feel. Amplitude knob, as I mentioned before, kind of adjusting whatever you're doing back here with this, just to make sure the gain stays the same. And then you have the cabinet section again, except this time you get a little bit more control. So you have the bypass switch here where you can turn the cabs off completely and use your own IRs if you choose to. You have the resonance control for each cab here, and this is kind of to adjust the differences in levels when you go to that mono stereo setting. So when you go to that setting, you might notice that the left side is a little bit louder. So what you do is turn the resonance knob up here just to kind of make sure it feels the same in both ears. I was speaking to Reed from Auto Audio, and he basically said that this plugin is not designed to have all the names written out in front of you, so you can just default to that vintage 30 speaker and that 5150 type of sound. He wants users to kind of try this out for themselves, trust their ears, and get a sound that's unique to them by fiddling with the plugin and all the options that it gives you. So with that in mind, we're going to start on the absolute default, and I'm going to dial it in right in front of you right now. The first thing I'm going to do is going to turn this mono stereo off, because I really want to get super articulate with the tone shaping, and I don't want to be kind of misled by that mono stereo type of sound. Even though I'll probably be turning it on later and kind of just jamming through it. That was really clean. Okay, so the first thing that I like to do when I'm using this plugin is just check if the overdrive is on. It is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust my input. I've kind of figured out myself that for my rig, having the input at like around 5 dB works really well with basically any plugin, so I'm going to leave it at that. And I'm going to put the 10 dB switch up on the overdrive, because I really like the way that the overdrive affects the overall amp tone. For my tones anyway, I feel like the overdrive is one of the most important parts of the whole tone. Just comparing that with it off. Turning that on definitely leaves chords ringing out a little bit longer. You get a little bit more saturation without riding the gain knob, which can give you a little bit more unwanted low end, if that makes sense. It's sounding a little bit too scooped for my liking, as I mentioned before, so I'm going to change the impedance curve. What I can do is I can cycle. That's a sound that I'm more familiar with and a sound that I gravitate towards straight away, so I'm going to keep it like that. And that's on impedance curve 6. So let's go back to the back of the amp. Gate was fine. Don't want to add any more lows. Let's play around with the tubes. So right now we're on 6L6s. Let's go to EL34s. I already like the sound of that more. Let's try the KC88s. Adjust the gain. Okay, so right now it's a shootout between the EL34 and the KT88s. So but the EL34 is more, so I'm going to keep it like that, and I'm going to ride this back up. Moving on to the bias and sag and all that stuff. Bias sounds pretty good. I don't really want to touch it, so I'm going to keep it. Sag, I don't really like the way it sounds when it's all the way up. I feel like it's really compressing it a lot and not letting the amp breathe. So kind of riding that back a little bit. Same thing with the feedback. See, I feel like it's kind of squashing down everything a little bit, so if I turn that all the way off, you can tell it's like right in your face, but then I don't get the control of the presence and depth knob. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write it at halfway so I can control the presence and depth on the front of the amp later. Null sounds pretty good where it is. That's way too brittle. Cabinet sounds pretty good as well. I don't really know if I want to change it, but for argument's sake, let's just go to the front and kind of switch through them a little bit. Nah. Too scooped. Compare that back to 1. I still like 1 better. Let's keep going. 8 sounds sick. Nah. You can probably tell I'm not a fan of the cabs that sound like this. Whatever that is. That's like very angly sounding. I'm not a fan. Too much low end. It's nice. A little bit quieter, we can adjust. That one's sounding not too bad. Let's compare that with number 1 and adjust the gain. 1 still sounds better. You know what? I think we're just going to keep out cabinet 1. Changing the topology of the amp. So we got the 1111 one here. Let's try low throne. Nope. Otto sounds cool, a little bit too much low end. For my liking anyway, for this type of tone. Too much low end. Too boxy. The thing is, when I say like too much low end, too boxy, stuff like that, that's for this tone with this guitar, with this IR. Like there are so many things that you can change within this plugin where that might sound better with another IR, with different amp settings and stuff like that. I haven't even touched the front of the amp yet. I've been doing all the stuff on the back and IRs and everything. I'm going to final tone shape at the very end of the front of the amp. But you know, like, it's not saying that any of these sound bad, it's saying that it sounds bad for this context. Like if I ran a cab that had less low end and I use one of these other ones, it might sound good. But for what I've got going right now, the way that I like it, I feel like, at least anyway, the 1111 sounds really, really good. And now going onto the front of the amp, to be honest, I really like the way it sounds. I don't really feel the need to change any of these settings, but we're going to do it anyway. See, that adds too much low, and that's what I was talking about before. So just dialing that back a little bit. Kind of making up for it in how hard you pick your guitar and stuff like that. And the overdrive that you use, and adding another 10 dB like we did over here. A little bit cleaner. Bass is fine. Let's try the mid. So you can get that super scoop type of tone. I'm not a massive fan of. That sounds good. Over here. Let's keep it around there. Treble sounds really great. I don't want to make it sound too harsh or anything like that. You do get a lot of control with the treble knob. You You can sound really, really subdued when it's really low, or sound really, really hi-fi when it's like super, super high. But having it around there was really good. Adjusting the master would kind of adjust that power amp saturation. So usually I like having it around like just below 3. Then what I can do is I can adjust with the output knob over here. It's not as woofy that way, and you get a little bit more string definition, especially when you're playing super, super low tunings. I know this is only drop B, but you know what I mean. I'm gonna adjust the mids just a little bit. That sounds better. Presence. Again, a little bit subtle. It definitely gets a little bit more hi-fi when you really push. Depth isn't doing that much. You're not really going to notice a difference at the moment because the feedback knob isn't too high. If the feedback knob was all the way up, you can definitely tell that there's like that low end rumble when you turn up the depth knob. Still subtle, but I like the way that the feedback was over here, so I'm going to keep it. And I'm super happy with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this current preset into the Keyan bank. Let's think of a funny name. Let's call it Cheerios. Cheerios with a 0. And now that preset's saved, and I can flick it on mono stereo and jam out. See, right now in my ears, the left one is a little bit more prominent. So the way that we can combat that is by using the resonance control here. Now I'm getting that like full wall of sound. It's like it's basically a wall of sound. Like you feel it encompassing all around you. It's very, very cool. So yeah, as you can tell, this plugin offers so much functionality, and if you're a real tone nerd like me and you really want to get down to the nitty gritty and kind of adjust every little thing about your tone, you can definitely do that. And the options are endless through all the impedance curves, through all the cabinets that you can choose, through all the back panel controls like bias and sag and feedback. Even with like the topology here, like you can change the gain structures of the amp and stuff like that. Lots and lots and lots of things to go through for sure. This is not meant to be a snapshot plugin. This is meant to be something that you really take your time with and really get sound that you're super, super happy with. And definitely by having all of these options, you should have no reason to think that anything won't work out eventually. If you think a cab doesn't work, maybe you can try a different impedance curve, or like change the topology over here, change the gain structure, vice versa between different things. You can kind of adjust and really, really tinker it a lot until you find something that you're super, super happy with. The guys at Otto Audio are actually giving away 3 copies of this to people in the comments. So if you can think of a really cool creative name for the preset that I just made, basically the 3 most creative ones will get a free copy of this. The only way to win this is by leaving a comment below and registering through ottoaudio.net and trialing out the plugin for yourself. And from there, you might be lucky enough to win a copy of this for free. If you guys decide to buy this plugin, you can get it for 50% off by using the code at checkout, heavier than. You can get it from $111.11 to half that. So just over $50, and you get this plugin 50% off. Pretty good deal. Of course, if you want to check out more and stuff like that, you can check out ottoaudio.net. I'll leave links for that in the description below. But yeah, sounds fantastic, feels great. and your options are basically endless. So there you have it, the 1111 from Otto Audio. I think this is really cool. There's some really cool features in this plugin. Definitely let me know if you guys are thinking about trying this out for yourself. Again, you can have the free trial on the website as well. If you guys like this video at any time, please feel free to leave a like and a comment on anything you saw or heard. And if you want to see more of this stuff, definitely think about subscribing. Again, if you want to support me directly, you can check out the tabs, stems, DIs, drum tracks, all that good stuff on my Patreon. And you can check out all my affiliate links. All that stuff will be down in the description below. But until next time, I'll catch you guys later. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to all my Patreons. I would not be making content like this without you guys. I appreciate every single one of you, and I appreciate every single one of the viewers watching this video. Thank you so much. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.